I'm gonna weave you a little story, right? So there's this girl, right? She's kind of crazy, kind of kooky, and a little bit of goofy too. But she turns up to this business place, and she's all like, "I'm Shikaru the assassin. You must be Mr. Yuguru." And then he's all like, "Well, I'm gonna need some proof of identification there, little missy." Naturally, she obliges by saying she passed 4 guards in the corridors who all gave her weird looks. Bearing this in mind, she reaches into her pocket and produces a passport and birth certificate, B, an assassin's badge of certification, C, a subscribe button that you should click. Do it, thanks. The answer is D. She produces 4 eyeballs, places them on the table, and gleefully explains, "I took their eyes." I see. This is the one-shot Shikaru, written by the absolute mad lad, Tatsuki Fujimoto. I recently picked up his manga of one-shots, 17 to 21, and promptly read it in an hour and loved it. Now, I'm no stranger to Fujimoto. I mean, I was reading chainsawman when it was serializing weekly, which makes me superior to you stupid plebeians who only read it at the beginning of its hype. You stupid anime normie. Basically, I like chainsawman, and because I like chainsawman, I like Tatsuki Fujimoto's other works, namely his one-shots Look Back and Goodbye Area. I think they're brilliant, and they all have the brief intermission seal of approval. I actually related to Just Listen to the Song the most out of all of his one-shots. I know it was shorter and simpler, but I just like the message more, and that's personally my favourite of the ones that are on the Shonen Jump app. All that aside, this led me down the rabbit hole of old Fujimoto works, which led me to the thing we're going to be talking about today, the recent publication of 17 to 21. So today we're going to take a quick look at all 4 of the one-shots in this book, discuss them, and have a grand old time. I'm actually going to go through them in order of my least favourite to most favourite, and we're going to be starting with... So this one I personally felt was way too simplistic. I mean, who am I to critique manga, but still, the plot basically revolves around a pretty basic gag, but the payoff is nice. This is Mr. Generic Manga Protagonist, and this is Mrs. Generic Manga Protagonist. This guy likes this girl, but he's just never been able to tell her. So today is the day that he finally will, but it seems like the whole world is against him. The teacher stops him, some homeless guy with a knife stops him, and even some aliens come down to Earth to destroy it and stop him. But none of it works, because the only thing on his mind is confessing his love, which he finally does. Now what I did really like about this one shot is that the girl really doesn't get much dialogue, and due to this it's actually difficult to predict what her reaction to his confession will be. This is played into further by only revealing to us that she said yes on the very final panel, which is a nice way to end it for sure. I also love that the guy who threatened them with a knife for money ends up giving the main protagonist money at the end to buy a soda. There's something poetic in there somewhere, I just can't see it. I also love that 90% of the characters' dialogue is punctuated with exclamation marks only. It makes it seem like they're shouting the entire time, which is how I read the manga, so it was really funny actually. In the end, it's certainly a nice one-shot, but with quite a repetitive gag and, dare I say, ordinary plot structure, it's my least favourite of the 4. So next up is... This is the first one in the collection, and one of the first one-shots Fujimoto published that got him some notoriety. And I can see why. Even from years ago, it has that distinct Fujimoto charm, you know the one, a chaotic plot structure that actually seems to make perfect sense, and not only foreshadows things in the later parts of the manga, but actually sets them up and develops them with such a short amount of time. This one-shot shows an Earth taken over by aliens, and the only 2 humans left are Yuto and Amy, who live in a schoolyard as chickens? Bit of an L. I like that our first introduction to the story is through the viewpoint of an alien, and honestly, it's crazy how normal he makes their lives seem. You could easily replace the alien with any generic protagonist, and they would speak and act out their daily life in pretty much the same way. This ties into the main theme of this one-shot, which is basically that humans and aliens aren't that different, and actually deciding if there is any difference between them at all. Unfortunately for humans, that difference comes in the form of aliens eating them, but luckily they don't like chickens, so Yuto and Amy are all good. And so the plot thickens. There is a rumor of an alien who protects humans up in the mountains. We get to see the daily school life of the aliens, and a new transfer student comes to the school who likes chicken. Wow, who would have guessed? This crazy turn of events comes with the revelation that our main character alien, Yohei, is actually the one who protects the humans. He figures out the Los Pollos Hermanos are actually humans in disguise.
Call me Sus.
All just a bit too late, however, as the transfer student rocks up and is hungry for a little meal. He's got the hungy bungy. That's cringe. Take that out of the... So Yohei, being the vegan boss he is, he absolutely curb stomps on this transformed alien who's trying to eat the main guys, and the crew run for the mountains, leaving the other aliens in their dust, onwards to safety and help until Yohei frickin' dies. You could say this is a bit of a complication, because a new foe has appeared, and he raises his fist on Yuta and Amy and prepares to strike, when we get a second plot twist. Yuta takes off his mask and he's... Dream? Wait, no. Oh, he's an alien. Oh. I mean, he blocks the punch like our boss, which Amy runs off into the sunset to safety. We are then told that the human race goes extinct not long after, but there are still a couple chickens clucking in the schoolyard. Okay, so let's address the alien in the room. Yes, the art is a bit crude. You can tell Fujimoto hasn't fully nailed his perspective yet. I especially noticed it in this flashback scene, but I can't pinpoint why. Maybe any artist can tell me why in the comments. But it's not like the art is bad, far from it, it's just different to how we'd normally expect Fujimoto to draw, right? What amazes me is actually how similar it is despite this. The faces of the humans are so obviously Fujimoto, and the story structure and plot twists and such are similar too. I thoroughly enjoyed reading this one. It had sort of a weird environmental message, questioning to us the ethics of eating animals smaller than us. Yet when aliens suddenly start eating us, that's when we act up. But mostly, alien fights go brrrr. Alright, let's get on to... In contrast to the last one, Shikaru's art is almost identical to modern-day Fujimoto. In fact, the main character Shikaru actually gives me massive Makima vibes for some reason, despite having the opposite personality. Shikaru is a joyful, airheaded, and talented assassin who ends up seeking a job with a businessman called Mr. Yumika. Strangely enough, Mr. Yumika places a hit on... himself? Kinda sus there, Mr. Yumika. Yeah, so it turns out Mr. Yumika is immortal. Not just that, he's a vampire who's lived for 3,500 years and finally wants to die. But even a talented assassin could not get the job done. Shikaru goes home, troubled by all this, and reveals to the reader that she's fallen in love with Mr. Yumika, even if she hasn't quite realised that's what's happened yet. Shikaru is a crazy character with little understanding on social etiquette or even her own emotions, but it's easy to understand why when her job forces her to normalise killing people. It's even easier to see as our introduction to Shikaru shows her a rough, abusive upbringing, leaving her questioning lots about the world with no good teacher to teach her. Either way, she returns to Mr. Yumika's and tries to explain these feelings to him, which he promptly tells her that she must have a cold. Shikaru investigates this by going to the local hospital, forgetting that, oh, I dunno, she's a very talented and infamous assassin who a lot of people want to kill. She ends up on the news because a load of people storm the hospital wanting to kill her, and on the news she pronounces her love to Mr. Yumika. But he laughs? Bruh. This turns out to be just the right thing, as he actually hasn't laughed in 400 years. Jeez, talk about a rough crowd. Am I right, guys? In response to laughter, I guess, he turns her into a vampire to save her life because she got shot by one of the many people standing outside. It's a sweet ending to a sweet story, and honestly, I really like this one. What's even sweeter is that 200 years later, she's still making him laugh. Alright, let's move on to the terrorist one. Sasaki Stops a Bullet is just like it sounds. This kid is Sasaki, this girl is Kawaguchi, and I still can't decide if she's a girl, or a lady, or a teacher. I mean, he calls her sensei, but look at her. She's gotta be like 14 years old. Plus, if she is his teacher, isn't that a bit sus? Because it's definitely shown that he very much so likes her. Anyway, back to the story. It's just a regular day when a terrorist comes in and says that Kawaguchi rejecting him years ago set him down a very downward spiral in his life and caused it to fall apart, which is just like, come on, man. It's not that deep. Come on, just stop. Anywho, he pulls out a gun and says that for punishment for this, he's gonna shoot her. And to which she says, no, I'll do anything if you don't hurt me or my students. She said, I'll do anything, guys. Do you get what that means? I'm talking about sex. So Sasaki doesn't like this. I mean, in his little baby man brain, Kawaguchi is the literal god, right? And he can't imagine some loser hurting her like that. So he steps up to the plate to see what he's got, and it turns out he's got quite a lot. After a confrontation, the guy shoots at Sasaki, where we get this awesome panel of the bullet leaving the gun, only for Sasaki to clench his fist and catch the bullet. Bruh, these shonen protagonists these days are insane, man. I mean, Sasaki's on like 10 levels of steroids, come on. So yeah, Sasaki stops a bullet, and the gunman, who is clearly on another level of drugs, is astounded by this, as is everyone else. As am I. Sasaki convinces the guy that he is from the future, and in the future, the gunman will reform his life, right? Get an education, a home, a wife. This eventually does convince the gunman, who leaves them alone, and that's pretty much the one-shot. But there's a lot more to unpack here. So firstly, remember how I said earlier that Kawaguchi is like a god to Sasaki? Well, it's sort of implied that she is a god, like literally, like Jesus, you know, that guy. So it's implied that she is the one that stopped the bullet, not actually Sasaki. And I can't decide whether or not I agree. When Sasaki asks her about this, she laughs off and says she must be a god then. To which Sasaki responds in the final panel of the manga, "Both then and now, I can stop bullets. That's just common sense." And the theme of this manga is common sense, or rather disproving this, trying to achieve something that seems impossible. Seems like there's a 0% chance of happening, when in reality, it's never zero, just really, really thin. But that is still big enough for some people. I like this message, I like the story, I like the art, and overall, I love this one shot the most. There's never a 0% chance of anything, and people who make up their minds before it's even happened are giving up before they hit the start line. But those who dare to dream, those who dare to go to the moon, stop a bullet, fall in love, they are the ones who make it. So that's what I'm trying to do. I'm dreaming that one day I can do this YouTube thing for life, and this is one step on that journey. So if you like this video, like it. Comment what you want to see me do next, different anime or manga you'd recommend. It's still a new channel and I'm open to all your suggestions and I really appreciate it. But either way, have a great one and I'll see you around. And thanks for stopping in this brief intermission in your life.